Good morning, everyone. This is day 30 of the vlog, and our family is on day 75 of distancing physically. Thanks for watching our daily video blog. Today's daily prayer for peace country is Albania. Eliza was telling me about how Albania has been in the news because they've banned conversion therapy, or at least the governing body for psychiatrists there have declared that therapy should not be administered by their doctors. Eliza was feeling like that was good news for Albania. Me too. Today, you're invited to pray for peace, and you can find the link to the daily prayer for peace each day in the description for the vlog. Today, I also invite you to remember Albania with us, and to remember that there's a world out there. Tiona has another book recommendation ready for us. The book today is called Nimona. It's by Noelle Stevenson and was published in 2015 by HarperCollins. Tiona says that this is another fantasy graphic novel. Nimona is the main character of the book, and she is the shape-shifting sidekick of the bad guy. This book was written by Noelle Stevenson, who is the creator, showrunner, executive producer of She-Ra and Princesses of Power. Tiona says that's my favorite TV show. And yeah, we're all kind of fans of that show. Tiona says it's a graphic novel with lots of action, some dragons, and awesomeness. And Tiona gives it 4.5 stars out of 5. Okay, it's time for my daily check-in with someone from the areas I get to serve in my work with Community of Christ. I'm back to bending the rules of my vlog again today, since yesterday I checked in with Barbara Walden of Indianapolis, Indiana. Although Barbara doesn't actually live in my field, as she and I agreed, Community of Christ history is in every field. And Barb is the executive director of the Community of Christ Historic Sites Foundation. Barb's one of those people who I could listen to all day long. She's an amazing storyteller. She's done so many great things for Community of Christ. Barb was the museum professional behind the design of the fabulous Kirtland Temple Visitor Center Museum. Barb helps us raise money and to take care of the precious historic sites of the church, from Kirtland to Plano, from Lamoni to Nauvoo. But I most appreciate the way Barb seems to be a crusader for the democratization of the church's story. I remember the first time I heard Barb speak. It was in a congregation, and honestly, since my years as a historic site interpreter in Nauvoo and Kirtland, I had mostly dedicated my life to the church's story outside of the USA and Canada, and I was kind of not looking forward to a church history-focused morning at church that I figured would inevitably be pretty USA-centric. But Barb's presentation introduced people in that congregation to church history stories from around the world, and I've been a fan of Barb's ever since. Maybe some of you have gotten to participate in one of the storyteller events that Barb helps organize, or maybe you've shared a church history story video that's posted on the Community of Christ Historic Sites Facebook page. I so love all the great stuff that Barb's been doing for the church. As Barb and I started our visit yesterday, Barb was reflecting on the amazingness of just how busy she's been. And of course, the second idea that Barb shared with me was from a historical perspective, as she said, I wonder how it will be to look back on this experience 20 years from now and to see what we'll have learned. Barb's thinking that this will be a story of learning about the importance of relationships and about how people stuck together and encouraged each other during this difficult time. Barb reminded me that she had been asked this year to teach the Community of Christ history class for the seminary, and that their class was impacted by the pandemic and the shutdown. It drew Barb and her students into thinking about past pandemics. Barb said that she went to the archives and found that there was just not a lot of documentation in the old heralds and in the archives in general on the 1918 influenza pandemic. We know that churches were closed, she said, and events were canceled. There are a few things in the archives, but not a full picture. Barb says we committed to not letting down future generations. So we all got together in April and shared written and video accounts Students collected screenshots of worships and gatherings, and Barb says we donated all of that to the church archives. That's 79 items on how we're doing and adjusting during this time of crisis. The new archival content came from students in Tahiti, Italy, Canada, and all over the United States, from small congregations and from larger ones. Barb referred to this as church history students giving a gift to future generations. Barb is hopeful that others are also working on documenting this for the future. She mentioned getting a message from David Howlett. David's one of the co-authors on the Community of Christ Illustrated History that Tiona reviewed the other day. He's working with Global Mormon Studies to document how the movement is responding during this pandemic. Barb says it's been wonderful just how involved the church history community has been. She says, we might have just sheltered in place to catch up on our reading church history. Barb is especially excited about the We Are Storytellers project. This is an initiative to collect video stories of people supporting each other in wonderful ways, of, well, stories of people doing the mission initiatives of the church. Barb says that seeing those faces and hearing the uplifting stories has been very meaningful. Barb's interested in using church history as a form of outreach. She wants people to know that we are a persistent and resilient people, and also that we've experienced crisis before and we have come through it. I had just been on another call yesterday talking about planning for alternative reunion events, so it was fun hearing an idea that Barb has been developing with Mission Center presidents. Barb says, we want to have online gatherings that focus on the history of our reunion grounds. Barb is talking about how the tradition of having reunions began in and emerged out of a time of financial crisis. So they're looking at an event that could be part of an online reunion experience where Barb would share some about the history of reunions in general and reunion grounds, and then someone locally would share the history of the local reunion grounds, and then it would be an open time for people to talk about the history of their campground. Barb described how she'd been talking about this with Kim and Sean out in the Greater Pacific Northwest Mission Center. Barb was thinking about the Samish Island campground as a great place to do this for, but they were very keen to have this done for all 3 of their Mission Center campgrounds. So if you're interested, go ahead and get in touch with your Mission Center president and explore the possibility of bringing this program to your area. We had a little chat about the sacred art of listening. Barb talked about how important that is and that we have to be reminded of its importance. Barb was reminded about the importance of listening with the passing of Dale Luffman during the pandemic and the profound impact that that has had. She told me that Seth Bryant, the Kirtland Temple site director, was doing an oral history on Dale and managed to get it completed before he died. Barb says, this has given us the kick in the pants we needed to do more oral histories. As Barb says, we all thought Dale would live many more years, so that has become a significant priority going into the summer. Locke is in charge and has recruited a handful of people, and we have a growing list of people to document in oral histories. So with sites shut down, we'll continue to document the stories, Barb said. I double-checked with Barb about the closure of our historic sites, and she confirmed that they were only open for a few days after their annual winter pause, and they continue to be closed. The First Presidency has been announcing updates on that, but clearly Barb says we're concerned about how to open and if we can open to do it in a safe way. Barb shared a wonderful thing is that people come from all over the world to tour our historic sites, but the thought of that happening during a global pandemic is very concerning, especially since our volunteers are often older. And then with all the new concerns about disinfecting and things that haven't even been an issue before, well, there's just a lot to figure out. Barb also talked about some other events that have been canceled. This year's bus tour was going to be all about women's history, but that has been postponed until next October. Clearly, Barb is mourning quite a bit of loss in fellowship and in sharing history. But Barb kept coming back to the fact that, as she says, we have a history of some of our best traditions being birthed in a time of crisis. Barb pointed at all these online services. She said, would we have ever had a service like the Beyond the Walls church history service without the pandemic? She went on talking about all the different audiences she's had online for different events in the British Isles and other places all around the world. Barb says we've been doing more than ever to share the story without having to be face to face. Barb talked about a Michigan Kirtland Temple retreat that became a virtual event and attracted 75 people. She talked about Locke's virtual tours of Nauvoo that have been posted and shared broadly on social media. Barb says that their online Tuesday Tales are more popular than ever, and they're developing a special lecture series to commemorate the 50th anniversary of Community of Christ Historic Sites Foundation. That will be to celebrate and commemorate and to thank loyal contributors who are helping to support historic sites. Watch for that weekly lecture series featuring Locke Mackay, Dave Brock, David Howlett, Barb Walden, and others. Barb says we stepped away from some of these activities face to face, but we've got amazing things going on online. Our conversation kind of moved into talking about how Barb was doing personally. Barb talked about being relatively new to Indianapolis. Her husband, Jody, was given a great opportunity with the Historical Society in Indiana to direct their fabulous museum in downtown Indianapolis. Barb says, I already worked from home, so there was very little adjustment needed there. But she said, I'm used to a home office and a home computer, but it was new for Jody. And Barb added, I wasn't used to having a colleague around. Barb described the first week of the shutdown, where she would be upstairs hard at work and he was downstairs watching superhero movies and eating nachos. She explained that his job was heavily oriented towards supervising staff on site, so he immediately found himself with more free time. But they've worked their way into new routines. Their days start with breakfast together. They go for a walk with the dog that usually takes them about 3 miles, and then they start their workday. And at the end, Barb says, we cook dinner together and we eat together. Barb reflects that having a lot of time together has been really good for our marriage. And Barb says that the pandemic has been good for reminding me that I married my best friend. It's great bouncing ideas off each other. Barb told me that since the shutdown started, they've also bought a new home together. She did admit to feelings of guilt at being so comfortable, while some people are struggling. But, Barb says, there's also a sense of immense gratitude. Barb says she's grateful for her faith community and also for her family, and she mentions that she's been doing more checking in with siblings and parents. She feels like relationships have benefited from a great realization of just how much we mean to each other. Our conversation was very positive. Even though we talked about worries for historic sites programs and funding, as Barb says, we know we're scrappers. There's so much tenacity in this community. I left this conversation feeling like Barb is doing okay and that we'll be okay. Okay, it's time for our big daily announcement. Da 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 da. Now in this moment, now in this day, but the question is, what day is today? Wait for it. Today is Saturday!
Yay, Saturday! Yay, yay, yay!
Yay, Saturday! Okay, well, I'm not going to keep you much longer than that. I'm hoping to be back again tomorrow with another What Day is Today video blog. Again tomorrow, I'll remind you of the daily prayer for peace country for the day. Tiona, will you have another book recommendation?
Yeah.
And I'm looking forward to reporting on another check-in with another person to update you on how they're doing. I will put a link to the Community of Christ Historic Sites Foundation Facebook page in the description. do spend some time on that page. You can take virtual tours of our fabulous sites, and you can browse the great We Are All Storytellers project, learning from the past in so many voices from around the church. There are 50 videos in that series already. I'll highlight the link to one of those stories from Michael Wright of Italy, telling the story of Suzanne Selden. Barb thought this one might be a good one for you to get a taste of that series. Check out the Tuesday Tales, watch for the 50th anniversary speaker series coming up. I hear that Dave Brock's talk on the story of Ed Guy will be fantastic. And don't forget that today is World Accord's Global Solidarity Virtual Conference. They've got great content online starting at 9 a.m. Eastern Time today and tomorrow. I'll keep that link in the description as well. And finally, I just want to invite anyone who speaks a little Spanish to check out the wonderful Sunday morning worship organized by the Dominican Republic and Mexico, Texas Mission Centers. The next one is tomorrow morning at 10 a.m. Central Daylight Time. You can find them on Facebook Live, through their Facebook group, or on their website. I'll put those links in the description too. Y pues, gracias a todos de Hispanoamérica por su asistencia. Sé que varias personas han estado dando la esfuerzo a entender el blog, siguiendo cada día a través de las barreras de idioma y de comprensión. Gracias por su paciencia y perseverancia. Quizá un proyecto futuro nuestro va a dar preferencia al español. Okay, so I'm signing off for now from my home in Independence, Missouri. Please, until tomorrow, remember to breathe.